Let us begin the session with Shanti Mantra. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. Good evening to one and all present here. It is my privilege to welcome Somesh Mohapatra sir, our special speaker for today's Focus Assist session at Sri Ramakrishna Vidyashala. I also welcome Swami Mahipalanandaji Maharaj, Program Coordinator, and Sri Srinivasa Babu, Senior Lecturer at Sri Ramakrishna Vidyashala. I will now give you a brief insight about the Focus Assist sessions held in Vidyashala. Focus Assist is a motivation and career guidance program for the students, incorporating the best practices across various disciplines of study. Swamijis, alumnus, and key resource people mentor the students to widen their intellectual and emotional horizons and deepen their spiritual and cultural connection. Though discussion was a part of Vidyashala campus life for decades, an organized platform was initiated a couple of years ago titled Focus Assist. Now there will be a short video presentation on Focus Assist. I will now give you a brief introduction about Somesh sir, a special speaker for today. Somesh sir is a keen researcher with an entrepreneurial mindset. Recently defended his PhD on materials science and engineering. He is working towards an MBA in operations at MIT. During his time at MIT, he co-founded MathSci Artificial Intelligence, an AI services company for manufacturing industries, and interned with Google Research. Prior to graduate school, he completed his BTech courses from IIT Roorkee in 3 years in 2017 and worked as a bioinformatician in Japan, a bureaucrat in India, and an algorithmic trader in Singapore. He is a fuel grade intern at Amgen. He is a research scientist at Google. He is a quantitative researcher at EIS Global Private Limited. He is also a technical executive at Unique Identification Authority of India, Aadhaar. He is an undergraduate research fellow at IIT Roorkee. He is a research assistant at Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology, Graduate University. He is an SN Bose Research Fellow at Harvard Medical School. I now request Sir to address the gathering.
Am I well audible here? I believe so. I can hear myself back on the speaker, so that's fine. Thank you. Uh, Namaskar, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here today, Swamiji. It is an honor to speak to the students of Vidyashala here. I myself have been a devotee of Ma Kali all my life, pretty much, just because of familial associations from my grandparents and then my mother. Today, right before this call, I was checking out this particular book, Vedanta Voices, Voice of Freedom by Swami Chaitananda. And along with that, uh, Sri Ramakrishna and his Divine Play by Swami Chaitananda have both of these books have been really inspirational and guiding across my uh, personal, professional, and spiritual journey. Today, what I'd be sharing is kind of the professional journey that I have gone through, but it is an absolute honor to be speaking to you, children, and sharing my life here. I'll go ahead and share my screen now. Right, let's see. Give me 1 second. I'm having some. Yes. Okay, I have to log in again. I'm so sorry for this. All right. So, past, present, and future. Uh, it encapsulates like my journey and what I have done over the years to be here today. Going to the first slide. Sorry. The outline of this presentation has three distinct parts. The past, which I start from my undergraduate life at IIT Roorkee and the journey before MIT. So it shows you like what is there beyond school, beyond your time at Vidyashala, what are the possibilities to go about, what are the directions. The not so present because I recently graduated from MIT and have uh, done with school for the near future. So I'd be discussing about my time here, the PhD, the MBA at MIT, and the time here. And finally, what is the current and the future? I'm currently working at Caterpillar Incorporation. So Caterpillar, you must be familiar with the big bulldozers, excavators that is used for construction and mining. So this is one of the things that I have on my desk showing the excavation system. So that's the company I'm working at now. So starting with the past, BTech at IIT Roorkee and journey before MIT. 2014 to 2017, this slide pretty much captures that entire time. I joined my BTech at IIT Roorkee in metallurgical and materials engineering. Interestingly, before joining Roorkee or like before appearing for JE, if somebody would have asked me, "Are you interested in metallurgy?" I'd be like, "Yeah, depending on what I see in class 12, somewhat." But if you asked me thoroughly, like, "Is that something you want to pursue?" I would not have been that sure. I was more into maybe computer science or mechanical, the traditional fields. But when my rank and everything aligned, giving me an opportunity to explore material science, I just could not deny it. And one of the reasons with that was essentially because material science allowed me to explore the multifaceted opportunities. For instance, in material science, we had electrical materials, electronics, biomaterials. I could learn about civil engineering and structural materials and so on and so forth. And with that, the very beginning at IIT Roorkee led me to start doing research. Again, why research that early? I figured out that if I wanted to understand the field better, I needed to invest time and myself into the process of learning more about what is there. So I kind of convinced a professor to take me as a research assistant and started working from the very first semester. This is something that I have seen mostly across people, and I see that, like, yeah, we are here at IIT Roorkee or like at any IIT, NIT. Do we need to work that hard? Do we need to do things? We should be able to get a job. We are already better than a lot of people in the country and the market. Unfortunately, I would like to let you know that it's not the case. When you go into an institution, the first thing that happens is your resume, your profile gets reset. So you literally start at zero again. So starting at zero, I started doing something like research in multiferroics. So some people here must have been aware of, let's say, ferromagnetism, which is like how the magnets, the iron magnets, attract another piece of iron. Similarly, with the magnetic North Pole, South Pole, there is a concept called ferroelectricity, and there is something as ferrotoroidicity. So I started combining them together, doing multiferroics research. With that, I ended up breaking one machine, and that project, unfortunately, the design, what we were trying to do is generate memory chips, like chips that are similar that go into your phones. Nowadays, phones are 64 GB, 128 GB. But if you think like how that small memory chip goes from something as small as 128 MB when I was little to the current state of 128 GB, in that small space, it is all about the materials there. And I started making those things. But what happened is material got overheated, and obviously you do not want your phone to be overheated that much. In that case, I started planning to use that in experimental molecular biology. The material was getting heated, so we started thinking about a thing called as a hyperthermia. What hyperthermia is, it's the heating or like overheating of a material to provide relief. And when we applied it to osteoarthritis, which is like the knee pains that you would see, we could embed a little material on your knee using two plastic sheets, and suddenly, based on the background radiation, it could provide a constant heat. So, no more hot bags, no more heating pads, anything, just this material, and it provides you relief for all times to come. This pushed me deeper into the field of bio and like learning more about medicine. I went ahead and worked at Harvard MIT Health Science and Technology Institute on cancer immunotherapy. Interestingly, this was my first work on cancer, but again, just with the mentorship of the people and with the help of my seniors there, I could start building tools that could help in designing better cancer drugs. This is the time I went into simulations as well. So in research, either you work on making something in life, that is like the experimental side of it, or you make things on computer, which is the simulation side. When you do something experimentally, what you can imagine already, it is going to take a lot of time. And when you make those things, that involves a lot of costs as well. But if you can simulate it beforehand, if you can make those materials on computer using the properties that you know, it is not very different from, let's say, the Young's modulus you already know, the conductivity, the resistivity, very similar properties to what you are learning, but modeling them in a more advanced fashion. When you do that on the computer, you can already screen hundreds to thousands of materials before actually going and making something. And that is exactly what I did. So before doing experiments, I started running simulations and making sure that work that I do is actually smart and not just like brainless hard work. Interestingly, this is the portion where I started loving simulations and the impact it had on experiments and their acceleration. Moving ahead, I started working on some networks of Indian medicinal plants, some FEM simulations for osteoarthritis, and in 3 years, I was done with my coursework at IIT Roorkee. I graduated. It was the first case at IIT Roorkee that somebody had done their BTech in 3 years with another 6 months with an international research work. So done with Roorkee, out of Roorkee, I was like, okay, what do I do? What do I do now? Uh, Interestingly, my grandfather then suggested that, like, hey, if you want to do a PhD, it is good. That is something that you are interested in. But the thing is, you need to have some real world experience. And my perspective on real world experience outside research involved working with, starting with an industrial research company called Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology in a similar field that I used to work on, but it was on ecology and evolution, that is population genetics. The basic thing that we were trying to do there was taking samples of cattle genome, which is like the cow, and then looking the cattle genome for 10,000 years. Like we had data from like museum samples, from archaeological samples, and going back to the like earliest days of the evolution to the 10,000 year mark. And over the period, we wanted to see how the milk production genes have improved. It provided an interesting insight, helped me understand how computation can be used to understand and then probably used to do genetic modifications to increase certain attributes, in this case, milk production. Post that, there was an opportunity with the government of India. I'm grateful to have worked on the Unique Identification Authority of India, or the Aadhaar program, as the technical executive director. So I can only say that Aadhaar is as safe as it gets. It is fully encrypted. There's no identity thefts. So do not worry if somebody says that your Aadhaar card is stolen because it involves a multi-factor authentication where you give your biometric or your retina imaging. So totally be like uh, absolutely safe and remain calm. Post that, during Aadhaar, I received my PhD offer from MIT. I was considering of joining early, but then again, a follow-up conversation with my grandpa made sure that I was not jumping into the program. So what I did is I went to Singapore, actually a bit remotely and bit in person, doing high frequency trading or sentimental analysis on finance data. What HFT is like, you know how stock market works, or like stock market prices are. You read news that like, oh, currently Adani's stock is in the foray, and they say that like, yeah, over the day it decreased over $100 billion or $10 billion, something of that range. But over the day there is a time series. Every minute something rises, something falls. What we were working on was nanosecond resolution of data, like 10 to the power 9 measurements every single second, and making decisions every microsecond. So we used to see 1,000 data points and then make a decision, and then again hold for 1,000 data points, make a decision. So every kind of like second, we were making 1 million or 10 lakh decisions of whether we wanted to buy, sell, or hold a particular stock. So that is high frequency trading. I liked it, but then I realized that in my 20s, what I would prefer is academic independence and intellectual freedom. So it was time for the not so present, but PhD slash MBA at MIT, and the time that I spent in Boston. 2018 is when I started my PhD designing macromolecules using deep learning and simulations. Macromolecules or polymers are essential for a wide range of applications, starting with peptides or therapeutics that can be used for your different drugs to actually designing plastics that can be recycled. So across my entire PhD, I ended up designing all sorts of, polymers that can be used in a range of application. The first year was kind of invested in learning the science, like what was essential, what is contemporary, what are people trying to do, like in 2018, and the nuances of experiments. The second one is kind of critical, like if people here would like to go into research or even any other career, when you're trying to, let's say, design a software, like if you become a computer scientist and try to design software for somebody or like code things, you need to really realize who are you doing it for, who is the customer. So in my case, the customer was the experimental person who I was designing materials for. So by understanding the nuances of the experiments, it was helpful in making things better for them and understanding their processes. Over the next 2 years, I spent time ideating and with independent thinking, trying to come up with ideas that made polymers better, then some dynamics of collaboration, which was interesting because uh, usually I was the youngest person in the room. And in that case, there was some amount of, I would say, politics, if that's a word that can be used a bit lightly, but essentially relationship and dynamics. As the as a second year PhD, how do you talk to somebody who is a research scientist, let's say, and who has been doing research for the last 15 years, or a professor who has been there for 20 years, 30 years, or even a senior researcher? And how do you present your ideas? How do you share that without offending them, without hurting their egos, without being condescending about their thought processes? So that is essentially what I started learning in my second year. During this time, I also worked with Google Accelerated Sciences, doing CRISPR guide RNA sequence design. This was one of the most interesting projects that I did. Uh, the human genome has about 20,000 genes. And in these 20,000 genes, life is expressed by the combination of one or more genes. For instance, if you say, like my eyelid color, if it is black, brown, or something, or my hair color, my height, everything is in the genes. In that case, what we were trying to do is find a way to regulate the action of each gene, pretty much designing something called as a CRISPR guide RNA system by which we can stop the function of each gene in the human genome, such that if we wanted to study as to how that gene affects certain phenotypes, which is the expression of what we can see, then we can understand the activity of each gene in the human genome. 21 and 22 was essentially when I was senior enough and I started thinking about mentorship. How do I give back of what I have learned and knowledge transfer? Also, started thinking about this initial thought process of nuances of experiments, but in a context of where I could say that, like, okay, how do I make systems which live long after I have gone? Essentially providing accessibility to experimentalists and sharing it to them. In this period, my company was also growing, and I started learning business skills and understanding. To kind of cement it further, I wanted to do an MBA, which is a Master of Business Administration, and I pursued it at MIT Management Sloan School. Once that entire period was done, I graduated from my PhD in May of 2022 and then pursued my research a bit at Amgen, which is a pharmaceutical company in late, like in May, from May 2022 to December 2022. And in January, I started a role at Caterpillar Incorporation. At Caterpillar, I'm in a leadership role where I'm an analytics manager too, or a senior analytics manager. And I work in strategic procurement and planning division. By the way, this is an off-highway truck. This truck is actually 3 stories high, like a building with 3 floors. And I'm sitting in one of the tires of that truck. So if the tire is that big, you can really imagine like how huge that truck is. This is made, I believe, at the Tiruvallur plant near Mysuru somewhere. And I work on the analytics of the supply chain and pretty much ensuring that manufacturing and services go on amidst trade wars, pandemics, and chaos. To give you a very small example, like if one single component of the entire manufacturing line is not available, even that can stop completing that truck and sending it out of the warehouse to a customer. So I try to do analytics and ensure that our supply chain people, we take items from our suppliers and people, we deliver it to our customers. Our orders are aligned and we can do a good job in ensuring a smooth flow of that value chain. So that's pretty much all from my side today on past, present, and future. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have about any of the portions, or would try to provide any advice that I can as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Somesh, for accepting our invitation and being a part of Ramakrishna Vidyashala fraternity. Students are very pleased to have you here. And along with me is our senior lecturer in chemistry, Sri CSP. I've invited him to be a part of this program so that some questions relevant to this and your studies also could be inquired for the benefit of the students. So I'll first pass this mic to our CSP sir. Then our students will take it over and they'll be able to interact with you better. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah. Good evening, Somesh.
Good morning.
It's
Good evening, sir.
good evening. I just wish to request you to explain, since you have traveled almost the entire spectrum of knowledge, to be precise. So, how is it possible for a student to identify his interest and then how to align it with his current pursuit and then finally reach out to the goal or destination? What you have explained to us so far gives us a wonderful spectrum that at times I felt that it is something not so easy to make. It's a transformational journey you had gone through. So can you just explain how is it possible, how did you find it? I'm sure it wasn't so easy at all. So I request you to elaborate on that.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for the question. Uh, the entire thing about transition and the idea around going from maybe like material science to computer science and deep learning, I think it was more about the journey and like picking up one thing versus another. I would not say that I was particularly interested, let's say, either in cancer research in the beginning or in multiferroics to start with, or even in like machine learning. One of so I I graduated or like I completed my first semester at IIT Roorkee at 10 CGPA, and I was the institute topper then. So I had an option to choose computer science and transfer to that. But I was like, no, not really. And I would be honest, the reason was I do not want to be coding all my life, sitting in a desk. I wanted to work on things hands on and do it. But what is happening currently is I'm like absolutely on the opposite side. I do not really like going into the lab doing things. I'd prefer to do things on my computer and help others. So this transition was enabled by just following the ideas and routes deliberately. I have one kind of example going back to IIT Roorkee when I picked up my first project. It was the time of the Dashera vacation, and I was planning to either go home or stay back at Roorkee and think about like how do I select a project, how do I approach a professor. The first thing that I did was essentially open up IIT Roorkee faculty profile pages. So even now you can do that if you want to like look up what faculty works on what. And I analyzed the faculty profile pages of like all faculty. I think like must be 400 odd faculty at Roorkee or something like that. And I noted like what each faculty worked on. And those were people from like architecture, the English department, from sociology, from biotechnology, from physics, from material science, pretty much all of them. There are words that I could understand. Then there were things that I was totally clueless about. But Google was a good friend. So let's say studying about what is green chemistry, what people are trying to do in that, or what are like multiferroics, let's say. And I narrowed that entire list of 400 people and 400 odd research ideas to about 10, where I started doing a deep study that like this is this something that really excites me? Do I want to learn more about it? Am I really being curious about it? Once I went through these 10 odd things, I had again narrowed it to about 3 with like a priority order of things. Okay, these are the 3 things that I want to explore, and these are the people I want to talk about. I reached out to faculty at Roorkee, and some people said no on my face. Hey, you are a first year student, a first semester student. You do not know enough about your subject. What can you do research in? And I'm like, yeah, that's actually true. And but I wasn't really disheartened by a professor saying no. I was like, yeah, it's the truth. So that's fine. The maximum that they can say is no. and I'm okay to accept that. So I moved on to the next professor, second on my priority list. Knocked the door again, asked, "Hi, sir, is it? So I'm a first year student and I'm intending to do research. This is what I've read on your topic. These are the recent papers that I read on your work. Is it possible that I could work in your lab?" And someone on that list, it was Professor Kale Yadav in physics. He said, "Sure, we can give it a try, but you must give me a presentation." And I'm like, "Okay." I prepared a presentation, gave it to him, and then it started a journey of working on that field. Two key lessons here. One, you have to do the homework. You really have to dig deep into things that you might be interested in. It might be a lot of reading, an incredible amount. Google is amazing. Wikipedia would be the first resource that I would open and just read about things that you hear about. It can be like something very simple, let's say like metal organic frameworks. This is something that you would read maybe in class 12 in coordination chemistry. And also, it can be as simple as something, let's say, like structural mechanics. If you're really into mechanics and like calculating like what happens in rotational dynamics and things like that, you can go through that. Or hydraulics, depending on whatever you are interested. Dig deep into it and see what people are doing now. So you have to do the homework. Second, people will say no, just persist. Keep knocking on doors. Somebody will say yes, and they might be the right person for you. I hope I answered that well enough for the students to follow that path when they come there.
Hello, sir. Sir, my
Hi.
name is Sir. My name is Vishresh. Sir, and my question is that, sir, according to some predictions, some people say that artificial intelligence may lead to the unemployment, and it's an bad and disadvantage of the artificial intelligence. So, what's your opinion about it?
Um, Hi, Mishresh. Artificial intelligence or AI leading to unemployment, that is a hotly debated topic in the industry and in society currently. But if you see, like, if people are using a smartphone, let's say, and they have a face ID, right? When you hold your phone and it detects your face and detects it, and the phone unlocks, that is AI in action. If you are ordering something online and that arrives to your place, like even if it is food and it arrives, there is an AI algorithm behind it that assigns a driver to your food that finds the places and gives it to you. Should we say it is an unemployment of the people involved in that hotel who you could call and then they can come and deliver? Maybe not. They actually got increase in business. Now they can reach more people, and people like who are the drivers, essentially Zomato, Food Panda, Swiggy, all of them can work and deliver that food. So in a way, the average of like the society keeps on increasing, and AI leads to more employment in that sense. But if you say that there are people who are working on little things, let's say like optimizing a particular composition. Let's say I'm trying to paint my wall and I want to know like how much oil should I put, like turpentine oil, and how much paint should I mix so that I can get like a thinner paint and it works well enough. There might be people who are working on like combining that, but some people like painters know it heuristically. But if we involve an AI algorithm there, then it can determine the material and actually make a good decision and maybe paint that entire wall. So there are some menial jobs which might be affected, but we are really, really far from that stage when AI is actually going to make a disruption in employment sectors. So we can be like hopeful and remain safe for now, that yes, we are not going to be disrupted anytime soon. But at the same time, let's focus on how we can use AI to our benefits, which is, let's say, like Chat GPT, which has come up now, on like how to use Chat GPT creatively and try to improve ourselves continuously. So yeah.
Good day to you, sir. My name is Anirudh. I'm studying in second PUC. My question is that you've managed to get 3 degrees from the most prestigious universities in the world, and you managed to do it in a very short span of time. What gave you believe that you could do it, and who was your guiding factor?
Um, that's a very good question, and thank you, Anirudh, for the question first. I think it was again a successive planning, and it was thinking about the process and trusting the God. Like, yes, things can happen. When I went to Roorkee and wanted to get my BTech in 3 years, I started thinking about it that it can be done in the third year itself. There were people at Roorkee, like the Dean Academics, Pramod Agarwal, who helped happen it, but it was me pushing for it. So I persisted and tried to make that happen. Will I say that I planned it from the beginning? Not really. Third year is when I even started thinking about it, right after Harvard, when they said that, like, hey, people here complete their undergrad in 3 years. I'm like, okay, I think I can try it at Roorkee. In 2017 was the first time that I started thinking about doing a PhD and MBA together. Since I was already in research from the beginning, from 2014, I wanted to do a PhD. That's something that I was sure about. But in 2017, after one of my startups in Roorkee kind of failed, so I was like, I do not understand business well enough. I need to do better. And in my head, it was about either starting another company, which I did, and also doing an MBA, because academics and academic skills would help you understand the things better. So 2017 is when I planned my PhD and MBA, applied to MIT and a bunch of other places where I discussed whether I could do a PhD and MBA together. And then I went about executing it. If I say guiding factor, I would say I have been supported by my parents and God. But in principle, the guiding factor, if you're asking for a mentor or somebody, honestly, I would not say I have had that. It was all about exploring and reading a lot and trying to find out what can be done. So the directions were provided pretty much by people I interacted with on those specific things. But even today, when I graduated out of MIT with both degrees, there are very few people who have done that. That like I was number three, and when I arrived here, I just realized that there was the first case of the student who graduated with a PhD and MBA from here. So there was no direct mentorship, but it was always support of the people around me. Thank you.
Good evening, sir. I'm Anmol. Can you please tell us your opinions about ChatGPT and its upcoming rival, Lambda?
Thank you, Anmol, sorry, for that great question. Lambda is interesting and it's coming up, and there's a couple of other things as well. Like Google recently made a $300 million investment into Anthropic, another AI company. They are planning to launch something called Sparrow, which has been in the making for a while. ChatGPT has been doing amazing. Like I have seen people use ChatGPT for creative purposes like designing a startup, writing code, writing a story, a novel, all of it. What you need to understand is ChatGPT has its limitations, that the answers that it provides may not be factually correct, but that can be improved by something called as a backtracking with the links and the resources. So Google is trying to do that. And when it provides the information, it will provide you with the links of where it got that information from, such as like references, which book, which paper, which news article. So that is something that they're doing. About the implications to the society, things are going to change significantly. Like people who are writing news articles, they would be helped by faster editing, uh, clear, like clearing out bugs in their codes, or like clearing out bugs in their writing, all of that. We need to kind of impress ChatGPT and its usages, or any other large language models for that sake. Thank you, Anmol.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, sir. I'm Ayush. There is a company called OpenAI. They're taking the AI to its maximum level. So there can be competition between Google and OpenAI. So what do you think about it, sir?
Thank you, Ayush, for the question. Um, so the difference between both Google and OpenAI, I have been seen this market and having worked here. I think Google is more like a big machine and like a I would say a respected person, if we can make that comment here, like try to anthropomorphize them. And OpenAI is like a kid in front of that tech system. So if ChatGPT starts making mistakes and says factually incorrect things, then it is okay. It's a kid. It's a new person on the block. They're trying to provide factually incorrect information. They're trying to do things, not negating any of their advances in machine learning, which is amazing. At the same time, Google has a reputation to keep. Google has a reputation that, like, if it provides information, then it provides you about the references. Like if you're searching something on Google, I would be like, if I need to find something, I'd just Google it or like search it on Google. And that is how I know, yes, if Google is showing it, then it might be correct. So that is the kind of thing. Like if I search something right now, let's say like, what is the weather like in Mysuru? Then Google will give me results for Mysore. And let's do this quickly. If I share my screen with you. Yep, you can see my screen, right? So if Google does it, then it shows me this. And then there's people also ask, what is the weather in Mysore whole year? And there is a link, a weather.com link here that actually points to the information about like how it is in Mysore. If I do the same in Chat GPT, what is the weather like in Mysore? First of all, it waits because there is huge demand. And okay, it just says, okay, I do not have access to real-time weather information. By using, you do it by doing a weather website or app. So ChatGPT and OpenAI, or like ChatGPT by OpenAI and other tools by OpenAI have their own specific uses. Google has its own stand. So there's not much of a rivalry, but yes, they are going to change AI for good in the upcoming days. Thank you, Ayush, for the question.
Hello, sir. I'm Sri Ram, sir, from First PUC, and I would like to ask you a question on your cancer treatment. And it's like this, sir. So you told that you were doing some research on cancer medicine therapies and also. So could you please more specify about it and about the therapies? Because in cancer there are 4 stages, and I would like to know which stage did you research on, and also the 4th stage and the 3rd stage. How much ever therapy you do, sir, the patient is likely to perish, sir.
Mhm. That's a really, really thoughtful question, uh, Shriram. And my work on cancer was based on like cellular level. So we really did not go into actual patients and do things, but we were trying to uh, like kind of like address cancer or make therapies that can be involved whenever cancer is detected. What you are talking about as the stages of cancer is essentially when it is detected, then the clinician provides us number, let's say like it's stage 1, 2, 3, depending on how big the tumor is, if it has metastasized. What is metastasis? When that cancer cell, like let's say if it occurs in a place like neck or like your lungs, like if it has blown out, that the tumor, the cells have gone and now attached to all the other organs or some organs, and there are multiple tumors everywhere. So that metastasis, if that happens, that is when you say that it is okay, stage 3 or stage 4, depending on the severity of it. So what we were trying to do ourselves is try to find a way to kind of like kill those cancer cells. Very specifically, the genetic information in the cancer cells is slightly different than what it is in normal cells. And by trying to identify the genetic information about what exactly is the difference, we were trying to make vaccines, that is like cancer vaccines, that we could inject into the patient. In our case, we started with mice models. We could inject it into mouse and try to see whether the mouses or like patients kind of like immune system learns a way that whenever they find these cancer cells, they can attach and kill those cells. So we were trying to do it by like making the T cells learn about what a cancer cell is like. So that was our approach on immunotherapy. I will share a quick link here in chat. Maybe IEI cells. People can share it with you later. So that is about the vaccine design using machine learning for cancer cells, and that covers in detail. It's a YouTube video about where I had given a talk for a particular conference about the specific details of how we were doing cancer research. Thank you, Sriram, for the question.
Good evening, sir. My name is Rishit. Sir, what is your opinion about biotechnological companies, sir?
Thank you, Rishit, for that question. About biotechnology companies, it's a big question actually. Like depending on what company, what field we are talking about, because the word itself, bio and technology, like it covers a whole lot of things. This can like focus on companies that make, I don't know, make agriculture better, like making genetically modified variants of rice. Let's say we have in India Central Rice Research Institute. So they make rice which can be grown in drought areas, which can be grown in high altitudes, which require lesser water, and so on. Then there are companies which make therapeutics. Those are also biotechnology company. Like you have Biogen, Biocon, you have Pfizer, even the companies that make, let's say, the vaccines. Those are also biotech companies. They have been doing amazing research over the last, like I think, 100 years, we can say. One of the first biotech companies, I would say, like in the company sense, would be the company that made penicillin, an antibiotic, and the largest usage might be insulin that people would be taking for diabetes. So, in general, the biotech companies are a huge space. They have been helping to improve our lives in various ways by trying to engineer what is natural to provide us in the best way possible. Thank you again, Rashid.
Namaste, sir. It's me, Naren. Good evening. I had a very interesting and kind of confusing question, sir. So there are three types of AI. The one is productive AI like Notion and Canva, like other, which are used for productive purposes. The second one is algorithm AI, like Google, who is working on it. Like if you follow Google Pixel phones, you get an option like as soon as you scroll your screen and you click app, it automatically opens that which you exactly need. So it's trying to analyze your algorithm, like what time what do you watch, and then guess what you're going to do next. And the third type of AI is actually biological AI. For example, Iron Man's, Jarvis, Edith, and Friday, the AI he had. So how they worked was they could actually analyze his whole body. Like the AI was going throughout his body through his arc reactor. Like the whole thing, the whole AI and the machine was in his own body, and those AIs could detect like what's going on in his body, what's going on in his brain, and could take the decision which he never spoke about but he had thought about. And currently, practically speaking, in the present world, Neuralink is working on that, one of the Elon Musk company. Neuralink is working on that. And what are your thoughts about such kind of AI developments, sir, which are connected to
About
the humans and biology, sir?
Okay, thanks, Naren, for that question. Uh, I believe like you're focusing on the biologic area, biological AI and Neuralink's work. It's very interesting, like if we could use computer science and engineering to advance humans to become, let's say, cyborgs. That is okay. That might help in improving things for, let's say, like people who lost a limb. Let's say like somebody, a soldier lost their hand in war, or let's say even an industrial worker who lost their hands due to an accident. In each of these cases, if they can have an artificial limb attached to their kind of like to their elbow, and suddenly by their motion in their brain, if they can detect and they can take things, hold it, it is going to change their lives forever. It is going to give them a reason to not depend on anybody and do things on their own. So the research in that front, and if it comes to the market, that is going to really, really impact a lot of people who we would otherwise say that they are not as productive as others for the society. Even in the cases of people like, let's say, like our grandparents, like sometimes they start forgetting things, which is due to, let's say, like Alzheimer's, which is a particular disease where the brain cells do not work well enough and they start forgetting. So, if such things can be used, then they can be directed to perform some necessary actions. Like these days, like my parents stayed with my grandfather in Cuttack in Odisha, and my grandfather passed away there, like in 2018. But I'm currently in US. So I'm not with my parents. Every time I call, I start thinking, like, did they take their medicines? Did they take their food properly? What is happening? And in all of those cases, if something like that is with them, then it is helping them guide throughout their general course and doing the essential tasks. And potentially, if I can sit here and track that, like, oh, yes, my mom has not taken her medicines, I will call my mother and be like, hey, Ma, did you take your medicines today? She'd be like, no, I forgot. But yeah, there was a reminder. Now I will take. So it is going to improve our lives for sure. Thank you, Naren, for the question again.
Hello, sir. My name is Satvik. So my question is, could you tell us more about material science and what it deals with, and what exactly do you study when you take up material science?
Sure. Thanks, Satvik, for the question. Uh, so I'll tell you like how I came about my decision of studying material science. So my grandfather was a civil engineer. My father is an electrical engineer. Then my one of my uncles is a computer science engineer and another a chemical engineer. So when I got into IIT, I went and asked each of them. I was like, okay, Grandpa, what is civil engineering? Then he gives me a list. Oh, we make bridges, we make these things and that. Then I go to my dad. I'm like, okay, what is electrical engineering? He's like, a lot of circuits and things that you do, try to like do miniaturize things and all. And like, okay. Then my uncle, like, what is computer science? He's like, coding, and you do like programs and softwares and things. Chemical engineering, manufacturing plants, make medicines, make drugs, make fertilizers, all of that. That is chemical engineering, by the way, is not chemistry. It is more like mechanical engineering, a lot of thermodynamics, heat transfer, mass transfer. So I was thankful that I did not go into chemical engineering just thinking that it is chemistry. So I was kind of left with, okay, but I am interested in all of these things, but I'm really not into like pursuing anything very deeply. I'd like to learn a bit about electrical materials, a bit on electronic materials, how these chips are, what are transistors, how these are made, what is their function. Maybe sometimes about biomaterials, how drugs are made, what are the particular characteristics. If I'm getting an osteoarthritic knee implant or a bone implant, what is that material composed of? And do some light coding as well. So material science is pretty much like you want to study what goes into every single thing to make it better, like structures, civil engineers, if they want to design a better concrete, a better cement, they would talk to a material science person. They're like, okay, we need it to bind better. We need its tensile strength to be impressive. And how do we do that? We don't want this material to corrode at any point. If a mechanical engineer who is building a house or something, they want better steel rods, they will talk to a metallurgist or a material science person. Okay, we need a better steel. How do we do that? A computer scientist similarly will talk to a material science person to design better chips. Okay, my phone is opening after 2 seconds that when I swipe it. Now I want it to happen in a second or in milliseconds. How do I do it? They'll be talking to a material science person to make better transistors, better chips. Similarly, biotechnologists or biotechnological engineers would be talking to material science people to see if something is non-toxic. It's like non-immunogenic, which is like if I implant it into the human body, then the body does not react against it. So material science is the underlying philosophy of pretty much every single discipline out there. It's a combination of like physics, chemistry, biology, math. Like it has pretty much everything in it. And the best thing is you don't have to choose what you want to do in the very beginning. You can learn a bit about everything. Then when you know enough, you get to choose of what you want to pursue later. Did that answer your question, Satvik? Thank you. Thank you very much.
Somesh will have one more question. One more question from our students. Last question, please. Anybody? From the PUC student, yes.
Good evening, sir. I'm Tushar Kuduchimat, studying in class 12. Just as you said, you have been working on various projects and you have been researching on them. So there might be some instances when you don't get the required output or the required result. So how do you keep motivated and how do you keep going?
Thank you, Tushar, for that question. Tushar, honestly, life is all about failures. Like maybe there is success at some points, but then you'd fail constantly to get to that success mark. And with projects also, that is something that happens. But at the same time, if you plan it out well enough that, okay, I'm going from point A to point Z or point Z, in that entire space, Z is my destiny. It's my final result that I want. But I can start with B as a small part and I can see as to how to do it. If B does not work, I'll move to C. If C does not work, I'll move to D. And you slowly do that for each single point. You have to have a lot of patience that things are going to work out. Things are hopefully going to go in your way slowly but steadily, and just keep at it. There's no other thing that can say that, like, okay, this is a magic pill. You take it and suddenly everything works for you. And another thing that you need to keep in mind is you are in a competition with yourself. I still have trouble, like trying to get that drilled into my head. I try to remind that every time to me, because there are people who are better than me. There are people who have been worse than me. But I am in a competition with myself. Am I improving me? Am I improving my work over the period of time? There are people who attained success when they were in 60s, in 70s of their life. Like if we think about Intel, I think Robert Noyce, who made the chips for Intel, he kind of started the company in his 40s. Now, if we see the latest generation of entrepreneurs, of like co-founders and startups, maybe right out of college, they are doing things in 20s. Mark Zuckerberg became a billionaire when he was, I think, 21 or 22. So you'd say, like, when you reach 22, you'd be like, hey, Mark Zuckerberg was a billionaire at 22 and I'm doing nothing. You can totally think about that. But at the same time, you can think, hey, I got the opportunity to be in Ramakrishna Mission Vidyashala, and a lot of people that I know did not have that level of education. So I'm so privileged. I should be grateful for that opportunity. And now I should make my life better than it is today. And that's all. It is just a single step every single day towards wherever you want to go. I hope I answered your question, Satwik. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That was a very interesting and informative talk. Sir told us about his past at IIT Roorkee and his journey to MIT. He spoke about time series forecasting, multiferroics, hypothermia, and drug delivery. He spoke about Harvard MIT Health and Science Technology. He then told us about his work experience at Aadhaar New Delhi and EIS Global Private Limited Singapore. He spoke about his PhD at MIT and about Google Accelerated Sciences. He also spoke about his leadership role at Caterpillar Incorporation and shared some of his life experiences. I thank Sir again for addressing the gathering. Let us end this program with chanting.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति